We've got our work cut out for us this morning. We're going to flush the coolant on the 7.3 Powerstroke. Jordan has done it before on his own pickup, so he's going to help me do mine. This is the Gooch method, and Jordan has all the tools and materials assembled that we're going to need to do this. So he's going to take you through the tools ahead of time, and then we're going to jump right into it.
You'll need a bucket to catch the coolant. I like using a shorter bucket so you can fit it under the truck. You'll need a 3/4 inch wrench, sockets, a torque wrench, pliers, and a 1/4 inch drive ratchet. For the flushing, you'll need a 5/8 inch flushing tee, 5/8 inch hose, your replacement thermostat and gasket, and 4 gallons of concentrate coolant.
We're going to put the links to the flushing tee and the thermostat and the coolant into the description, so if you want to use what we're using, you can do that. We're using Dello ELC coolant. We've got 4 gallons of it in total, and then over here we have 20 gallons of distilled water, and that's going to come in handy not only for adding to this coolant, but also we're going to use part of this water during the flush process. All right, Jordan, let's get started.
Step 1, drain the radiator.
Right up here under the radiator, there's a petcock right there. That's a 3/4 inch end wrench, and Jordan's just going to use that to open up the petcock. Now, if you strategically place your mouth right below the hole, you can fill yourself up. But we prefer to put the bucket below the hole in that petcock. That seems to work better for us. As you can see, there comes the green coolant. That's what we're getting rid of. Green coolant can cause pitting over time. You're supposed to replace this more often. I've been running this for a few years, which is beyond recommendation, but you know how life gets busy and you end up just using it if it's working. So I'm excited to have this longer life coolant in here. I'm going to crack the cap on the radiator just to allow this to drain faster. All right, I'm going to open the cap on the degas bottle here. It's going to allow it to drain faster out the bottom, just like that. And then there was nothing to do but wait. I'm going to wait and keep an eye on this because there's going to be more coolant than what that bucket holds that comes out of there. So once it starts getting pretty close to the top, we're going to shut the process down, dump the bucket, and then start it again. All right, shut this off. I am going to just attempt to shut the top of the degas bottle again and see if I can dry that up. Degas bottle shut, so we should create a negative pressure here shortly. Alternatively, you could screw the petcock shut, but we're going to try this easy method and see if that'll do it. We've used this bucket for engine oil before too. So it's got a black film of oil floating on the top. Look at when that coolant bounces in there. Makes that green bubble. It's really pretty. Alrighty. It probably would have been faster to shut the petcock, but we didn't have to get coolant running up our arms, our elbows, so I don't know. 6 of one, half dozen of another. If you're in a hurry, shut the petcock. If you're not, go ahead and just choke off the air supply. And that did a pretty good job. All right, we're gonna dump this into the scrap tank. Yeah, look at that. It didn't even drip while we were gone. Here we go again. Open comes the lid. There comes the flow. While that coolant is almost done, but taking its own sweet time to do that last little bit, we're going to go ahead and get started up here by removing the thermostat, which is inside this housing right here. So to access that easier, we're going to take this Powerstroke emblem off. just gonna set that up there. All right, the emblem was 13 millimeter. Now I'm gonna switch over to 8 millimeter, and I'll be able to grab this hose clamp and take it off. I'm gonna back it almost all the way out just to make it easy, but leave that tab connected so that we don't have to release that. That'll come right off of there, no problem. Okay, now we'll switch over to 10 millimeter with a stack of extensions so that we can get down in there. There's a bolt here on the back of that, which we want to grab. And then there's two on front. This is one. Jordan says this is the magic spot between your serpentine belt and your alternator, then back around your hose. You'll deform that hose a little bit and you can get right to it. It's handy to have someone who's just done this recently telling you the easiest way to get after these bolts. And there we go. All right, we're gonna break that free right there, and then I'm gonna clip this zip tie. So I got these nifty little end nippers to do that. And boom, just like that. All right, separate this thermostat housing from the thermostat or the adapter fitting. Of course, we'll dump coolant all over the ground down there. And then we'll just separate this thermostat if we can. Would you hand me those pliers? That definitely came out. Jordan says take the gasket out separately. And so we'll do that. Look at that. Out she comes. Just like that. All right, that was sitting like that in there. But this is scrap. All right, now for a flush, we're going to put this back together without the thermostat in it. And the reason is that thermostat will change to allow coolant through. Right here, you see this plunger? And the spring, it'll change to allow coolant through or not allow coolant through. If your coolant's not warm enough yet, then it won't cycle, or your engine's not warm enough, it won't cycle. So, and it controls. For the flush, we don't want the thermostat dictating how our coolant flows. We just want it to flow all the way through all of the time. And so that is the reason that we are reinstalling this housing without any thermostat in it. We don't want that thermostat doing anything. So we just remove it from the flow, and then we put this back together. Obviously, now if you're thinking, oh no, he didn't put the gasket in, you're right, but it's not oh no. We don't need a gasket in there because so what if it leaks a little bit? We're going to be feeding it lots of water as we do the flush, and so it's never going to run out by leaking from here. And this is just temporary. We're going to open this right back up and put in the new thermostat and the new gasket. So we don't care if it does leak a little bit. Alright, if this bolt is being that difficult, I dread to think what the back bolt's gonna try. But hopefully it won't be too bad. I'll use the combination fingers again. This makes me think of my niece. She likes to use her pointer fingers for everything. So shout out to you, Emily, if you're watching this someday. There we go. It works pretty good. I can see why you like to use your pointer fingers. All right. And then, do I want to tighten this back down, Jordan? I assume so.
The clamp? No need to. But
snug it up.
Snug a little bit.
Just keep something from bursting and losing a lot of water. All right, cool. Thermostat is out of there, so we have unrestricted flow. The thermostat can't kick in and shut the flow off. That's what we want. Alrighty, you can see we are down to the drips and the drops. So I'm going to shut this petcock first by hand. Yeah, so that's probably good enough for what we're doing right now. But you could just snug a wrench too. Now, if you twist too hard on that, that'll break. That's plastic. But Jordan informs me there's a built-in fail-safe, at least a secondary option if you do twist that off. He says he twisted too hard on his, snapped it off, and his old radiator, which he was replacing for other reasons, is sitting over here. So you can see what he's talking about. You can see that there's no way a 3/4 inch wrench fence on that anymore, and that's because he snapped that part off. But inside of there is an 8mm Allen key fitting. So you can still run that with an Allen key, which seems pretty smart to me to build that in, especially for a plastic nut like that, or bolt. All right, we're ready to dump the second bucket in the scrap tank. So we're gonna do that, and then we're gonna dump the other side of the radiator. Well, the hose is coming into the other side of the radiator, maybe I should specify. All right, if something's this tight around here, it's because John or Jordan put it on. There we go. And this one, I happen to know it's Jordan. All right, this is how to torque the lid on a scrap tank. You run it all the way down, and then you snug it. We're gonna grab that 8mm again, because we're gonna want it. You get a pretty good view from this side, Jordan. Now there's two hoses coming in on this side of the radiator. This is the bottom of the radiator you're looking at right here. This one comes from the degas tank up top where the coolant is. You can see the coolant level through that degas tank up there. And this one comes from your water pump. So I'm going to release this one first. And we're going to...
When the hose comes off, it's going to shoot coolant forward.
Okay, so Jordan just warns me this hose is going to shoot coolant forward at me. So I'm going to move me before I pull that hose off of there. This one here is just a Satan clip. We call it Satan clips. Maybe Steven, when he's editing this video, maybe he'll stick that meme in there so you can see why we call them that. And now we're going to release these and see if we can avoid a shower bath. Right here, I'm going to get that bucket nice and close and shut my mouth. That wasn't too bad. I'm pretty happy for the warning Jordan gave me ahead of time, because based on the way he looked after he did his, he probably that probably looked a little different than what we just saw. Now this, remember, is the degas bottle, which is already drained pretty much because we drained that through the radiator the other side. This here is about the level of that petcock over there, so it's got to drain a little bit more. I don't know, that coolant doesn't look too bad coming out of there, which I'm happy to see. There's a little bit of sludge, but nothing you wouldn't expect for a 23-year-old vehicle. I've drained the radiator before and filled it up again, but never flushed it. Flushed the coolant system, that is. All right. I want to know, you think there's going to be more, or you think there's going to be less that comes out of this bigger hose? What do you think, Jordan?
A lot more.
A lot more, he says. Okay, spoiler alert.
It's going to come out of the hose too, not as much the radiator.
All right, so we're expecting more out of the hose than the radiator on this one. Okay, we're getting close to coming off, so any moment. There we go.
Wow, mine had a lot more in it.
We actually got more out of the radiator than the hose. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, it changed. Did you have green coolant or red coolant in yours?
I had very oily red coolant.
Uh-huh. All right, so there we are. We want these hooks back up for the flush. So I'm gonna put them back on. I like to get these back in the same spot every time. Alrighty, we're under the truck. And just to orient yourself, that's the driver tire right there. Of course, passenger side tire over here. Back from the differential driveline, here's the oil filter. Here's the oil pan. Go up between those two things and you'll see a plug. It's not that one, it's the next one up. That's the coolant plug we're going to loosen right now. And so, we take the end of a 1/4 inch drive, and it'll fit right up in there, and we back that puppy out. Alright, I'm not sure that I'm going to hold a camera while I do that, but that's what I'm going to be doing. That was very intense, as expected, but when it came, it was a sharp crack sound, and it was loose. So now I'm going to back it out, hopefully not all the way out, because I have my face underneath it while I'm holding this camera for you guys. But I'm going to get it till it's close, and then we are going to take the plug out and catch it with the bucket. All right, boys and girls, we got her. So it let out a lot of coolant, and unfortunately, when it starts, if you back the bucket up, the stream lands right smack dab square and fair on the drive line. So there's no really good way to get a big bucket up in there to catch it. If I were to do it again, I'd use a little smaller bucket. I just stick it right up in there, and I'd catch even more of it. But I ended up dropping the bucket down a bit and then guiding it with my hand into the bucket, and that helped, but it just makes a mess. I'm not torquing this yet, I'm just snugging it. Here's an interesting predicament. See, this is the starter. We're over on the passenger side now. So this is the oil pan. up beside the oil pan, that's the starter, of course. And then up behind the starter, I'm sticking the camera up in where my head does not fit. But there is this plug right here. And that's the one we're after. I can barely see it by looking between the starter and the oil pan. You see where my finger is up there? That's the bolt right there. And so I'm gonna get a 1/4" ratchet wrench up there, but we can already see that when we get that plug out, there's not really a good way to catch that coolant. It's gonna land on the starter, which has electrical connections normally you don't want to be spraying coolant on, but we're gonna do it today. All right, so by feel, we're going to place this ratchet wrench into the plug, and then we are going to pull on the handle, see what we can get. There she goes. There she goes. Some guys will use a kiddie pool to try and capture this more efficiently. Alright, and when it stops, we can assume that it has drained. And I'm going to replace this hand tight for now. The plug is back in here hand tight now. So the system is effectively shut for what we're about to do. Alright, here's what's next. This is the degas bottle, just to orient you. And this is the AC compressor right here. If you go down right beside the AC compressor and under the engine oil dipstick, we're following this hose that the light is on right there. There's a clamp right down there. And then it makes a 90 and goes into the block. So what we're going to do is I'm going to come from below and get the clamp off that hose so that we can remove that hose and install our flushing tee. Go ahead. There we go. All right, with that hose loose, we can now put the hose on it from our flushing tee. And Jordan's just going to simply slip that right over that nipple. Boom, just like that. Don't even need a clamp on it because we're just going to be temporarily handling this. Now we pull the heater line out here and it goes right into this tee. Now you can see you can thread a garden hose right on there, which is what we're going to do. Thread on that garden hose, and there we go. All right, we can hear water coming through here. And eventually we're going to see the water come right out of the top of the degas tank. Ooh, look at this. It's still green. Still got coolant in it. Which makes sense. Those areas you cannot drain of that coolant system. So. Oh yeah. Flushing. Alright. Might get Western. Stand by. Tell me whose YouTube channel that's from.
There we go.
So Jordan says we run this for 3 minutes or until the water is clear again, whichever one takes longer. Alrighty, we are taking apart the flushing tee now because we are done flushing the system with the hose. We're going to hook back up the heater core line, but first let's get this draining. I'm going to open up the petcock again. All right, this is water in here, hose water. Throwing that out, and then we'll do these lines over here. Would you hand me that 8mm and the pair of pliers again? Okay, cool, that's loose. I'm not gonna pull it yet, otherwise it's gonna give me a shower in my current position. I'll take that clamp loose again. Alright, now I'm gonna rotate so I'm not downwind directly from it. And separate this hose. Alright. Clear water. That's what we want to see. Alright, so we're back on this passenger side, and I'm up above the starter. Back here on the passenger side, above the starter, I have this plug in finger tight. And now it's out again. Sorry for the hasty move, but I wanted to get out of there before I got a shower. Seems like this whole job is about avoiding a shower. Alright, other side now. And I snugged this side up with my little ratchet wrench, so I'm going to keep the plug. I set it up there. I'm going to the driver's side one again. That one by the engine oil filter. But it's real easy to get to it coming in from the passenger side and rolling across the truck on the creeper. There we go. It should be about finger tight again. I'm going to hook up these hoses again. We're going to hook up the heater hose again. Let's do the heater hose first since we're up here. This heater hose routes underneath, so let me get it back under there. It goes underneath and through there. All right, I'm going to pull off the hose that we have on here for the flushing tee to start with. That. That's the route, and that's connected. I'm going to get underneath there with pliers and move that clamp down all the way.
You can see right down there is the clamp, and Ben is going to open it and slide it down to lock the hose in place.
It's hard when water's in your eye too. I got a couple drips of water right in my aiming eye.
You're almost there. There you go.
Alright, got it. And now I'm going to hook these hoses back up. This is from the degas bottle. And this one's from the water pump. All right, good deal on that. Going to move this clip back into position because we're going to fill this up with distilled water and run it. And can I have that 8mm? And this will be final install on this. So I want to snug it up and make sure I like the clamp position. Good. And then I will shut the petcock. Just like that. So I'm just going to put this little plug right here on the wire wheel to clean it up. Looks good. All right, folks, we are ready to put the plug back in again. In again, out again, on again, off again. Can anybody tell me what that reference is from? I'm curious to see if any of you get that right. That's what it feels like doing these plugs. In again, out again, on again, off again. And that's a quote from a book, a Dr. Seuss book, actually. And I think that's all the hints that I'm going to give. But I am going to come back and check the comments to see if any of y'all got it. All right, we made a decision. We're going to clean out the degas bottle. Because we can see a little bit of metal or sand in there. There's two bolts right down here that I just pulled, one there and one over there. There's another one up under here. Jordan just took off the tire wrench. There is a clip right up here to a hose. That's just a vent hose, if I remember correctly, that goes back to the top here. So we'll take this off, and then there'll be a hose coming out of the bottom. I'm hoping I can get to it just by pulling it up. The smaller of the two hoses is to the degas bottle. We're just gonna slip that off, pull that hose free, and then allow us to pull the degas bottle off the top and get to that clip a little bit easier. I'm just gonna leave the hose in here for convenience sake. That way we don't have to snake it back down, find its path and hook it back up. But just unhooking it there on the bottom allowed me the slack I need to get this clamp moved down from up here in the open. These should be opened up a bit. Drop that clamp down. There I should be able to get free. Yep. And I'll just leave the hose sitting there. Don't need to relace it or anything. All right, gonna install the degas tank, reinstall it right there, and the clip goes back up. All right, poke that down in there, line up all the bolt holes, and here we go. And then we need to remember that we took off this line down here, so I'm just gonna put that back on real quick. Beautiful. From here, we're going to fill the degas bottle up, and basically the whole coolant system that we can, with distilled water only. And then we'll let the system burp and keep topping off with distilled water. Once we're happy with about 6 gallons in there, probably we'll start the truck, let it run for 2 to 3 minutes, and keep topping off with distilled water as necessary to keep the level in the degas bottle. And then we will shut the truck off, drain it, and do it again. So this is, we're on the 7th gallon. We put about half the 7th gallon, so we got 6.5 in there. And our level is sitting right here. So obviously there's some air in the system still. But we'll start the truck, let it run, and add water as necessary to keep the level up. We ran the truck with the first batch of distilled water in it, and so now we're going to drain that water via the radiator petcock and the plugs in the engine block. So we'll start with the radiator petcock. Just moved back and I'm hanging out because these plugs go in again as soon as that stops draining. The one on this side, the driver's side, it shuts down pretty fast, it seems like. Once it's done, it's done. The other one sputters for a while. Back to this passenger side, which is the trickiest one because you're doing it by feel. But also, it's got its benefit, especially on this one. It goes in a little bit easier than the other side. The threads are probably cleaner, and I'm right-handed, and the other one I'm doing left-handed, this one I'm doing right-handed. So, you know, all in all, it is what it is. So I need to remember to shut the petcock on the radiator now, which I have done. If you like watching the same thing twice, here we go. I'm not going to take you on the trip this time, but that's how the water's looking right now. I don't know if you can tell through the camera. It's still a little bit clouded. So we're going to do the third drain and fill and see if that'll help us out. Jordan opened the petcock on the radiator. I'm going to pull the plugs out of the engine. Alrighty, this will be different. If you think you're about to watch the fourth or the same thing in a row the fourth time, you're wrong. This time it's going to be coolant. See, it's red this time. Isn't that exciting? Now, truth be told, there will be distilled water chasing this down, but for now we get to watch red coolant go in, which I'm happy about. I've been running green for years, and in the back of my mind it's just been living there that I need to switch to red. And it's one of those things, if it's not broken you don't fix it. So I'm really happy to have this happening right now. This is not pre-mixed coolant. This is full strength Jello ELC coolant. We're putting in 4 gallons of it total after we drained everything from the block and the petcock on the radiator. And then what we'll do is we'll bring it up to proper operating level with distilled water. So we know we have those 4 gallons of concentrate in there, which means we have a good mixture. 2 down, 2 to go. So right here, I just remembered I have not put my thermostat back in. Thankfully, we're at 2 down, 2 to go still, so we should be low enough, I think. We're not gonna have a problem. Let's do that. All right. Now it's back to what we were up to earlier in the day, and that is pulling off this thermostat housing. Let me grab the 8mm and loosen that up. No problem at all. All right, let's get the new thermostat. That's the new one. Here's a little piece of Scotch-Brite. Gonna go ahead and just clean up that sealing surface. That's pretty nice right there. So in we go with him. Then the new seal right on top of that. And then bring the housing down right on top of that. And now I'm setting it straight down on top of here. And I don't want to scoot it around because I don't want to roll that seal. So I'm just using one hand to keep pressure on it straight down. And I'm using the other hand to get my bolts started. And now I'll go for this back one. All right, 180 inch-pounds is what we're looking for. Alrighty, we are up to torque on those, which means I can put this clamp back on. That'd be right there. Switch back to 8mm. And bring it home. I'll give that a look once the truck's running. Keep an eye on your coolant after you do this for a while. Make sure. It's just a good idea to watch your fluids after you do this. Here we go. put my Powerstroke emblem back on here. A lot of times, it seems like on several of the trucks we own, these are gone now, but this one still has it, so why not? If you've got it, run it. Now Jordan has some zip ties here. Let's go back around this area. We're gonna need a couple of them. I'm gonna set this one side up before I get in there. Now, a lot of people will cut zip ties off with side cutters or scissors or something, and it leaves a sharp burr on there. Just like that. So what we did to this pair of side cutters is we ground them flush on this side. See, usually there's a little divot, but what that allows you to do is get right up to a zip tie like that, and when you cut it off with this, that is smooth. It doesn't catch my glove at all. See, normally if I cut that off with side cutters, it'd tear a hole right in my glove, but that's nice and soft. There's a tip for you. Grab a pair of side cutters at the garage sale, or just a pair of side cutters you have that you want to turn into your zip tie cutters. Grind that down on a grinder, sand it smooth. You'll have yourself a nice pair of zip tie trimmers. Okay, back to putting in coolant. We'll put in those next 2 gallons of concentrate. All right, some people would probably tell you it's important to concentrate while you're pouring this concentrate in here. And maybe it is, but if I was concentrating completely on this, I wouldn't have thought of that thermostat being out of its housing still. So that could have created a problem for us. Which means you should just always use your mind. Always be thinking about what you're doing, and not just about what you are specifically doing right then, but what's coming up and the general scheme of things as you go along. Doesn't mean you're never going to miss anything. It just means that maybe you'll catch it before it's too late. Four of 4 right here. That's such a pretty color. Yeah, that looks really patriotic right there. You've got the red, white, and blue. The white tag on the funnel, the red coolant, and the blue jug. That's pretty nice. Alright, now I know it's your favorite part, more distilled water. You love watching this. We're going to use distilled water to bring this up to the correct level on the degas bottle, where it says minimum, maximum. We're going to bring it up to max. In goes another jug of distilled. Looking down there in the degas bottle, you can't even see any red. It looks like it's full of distilled water. Truck is running now, and I'm going to switch this over here onto full hot and turn the fan motor on, because that's going to circulate the coolant through the heater core. That is how you flush the coolant system on a 7.3 liter Powerstroke diesel. It wasn't hard. Some of the stuff is rather, I don't know if it's difficult, but awkward, we'll say. Awkward, and you just about get a shower with almost everything you do on this. So, if you need to flush your coolant system, now you know how.